Hopefully at this point, most of you have gotten a chance to experience the Outer Worlds. And although the game itself is pretty great, pretty much everyone I've talked to has loved it, and it seems like overall it has been a massive success, both critically and even sale-wise according to Microsoft. Of course, the next stage with the Fallout New Vegas spiritual successor is modding. And with the Outer Worlds, we're still in kind of that weird or odd initial stage. Obsidian has stated that mod tools for the Outer Worlds will probably come at some point. As of right now, we haven't really heard much about any updates, DLC, or really anything post-launch with this game, although it was just confirmed by the official Xbox Twitter that Obsidian will be at XO19. This being an Xbox conference, basically just going over everything Xbox related, but also, as described by them, being filled with news, first looks, and surprises. So it seems pretty likely we'll hear either about DLC and hopefully even mod support at this, and I'll definitely keep you guys up to date with that. The presentation itself is on November 14th, but even though official mod tools aren't here, several things still have come out for this game that are pretty cool and pretty interesting. A lot of this being quality of life fixes or improvements, unlocking certain aspects of the game that you would hope to be there, and of course the ability to just cheat in game if you want to go that route. So in this video, I'm going to give you a bit of a recap of some of these initial mods to come out for this game, so hopefully if you're on your second, third, or even fourth playthrough, you can have a little bit more control or a little bit more customizability. And it definitely is worth noting, as of right now at least, these will only be for PC. So one of the first ones that's just a huge quality of life mod to download, especially if you're playing a lot of the Outer Worlds, is the Skip Startup Splash. When you start this game, you get a couple of videos that do play first. That gets really old really quickly, and what this configuration file is going to do is remove that. There's a couple of different routes you could go with this, either just inserting blank videos included with this that'll make it go quicker, or alternatively by editing one file to remove things completely, so you just get straight to the main menu. Although one separate mod that also is supremely handy is Minimal HUD. This is a pretty cool mod, also based in some of the configuration files of the game, but it kind of comes pre-set up, so it's more or less just drag and drop, and it'll take away certain HUD elements, so your HUD isn't as all-encompassing as it is by default. One of the cool parts about this mod is it's actually pretty modular, so depending on how you configure it, you could have much of your HUD still there, or almost none of your HUD still there, just some aspects that you really like seeing, but other ones that you don't care too much about. In particular, the whole bottom left with the companion controls, that is just not really necessary after you learn those functionality, and at least as it stands right now in game, although the Outer Worlds has the ability for you to turn your HUD off, you can't turn off certain parts of it. It's either all or nothing. Although kind of the opposite of making parts of the UI disappear, the other major request I've seen with this game is actually making the UI bigger. The text in particular for some people is just too small, so bigger UI is going to fix that. It has several configuration files, so you could choose different sized UIs, and it'll basically scale things up. And of course, as a result of that, making a lot of the text you do encounter a lot more legible and just easier to read, especially sitting from afar. But then, and this is going to be a particularly big one, we do have the developer console unlocker. So something that was actually pretty surprising to me with the Outer Worlds was, while it was released, there actually was no development console. This is surprising because that really played such a big role in New Vegas and New Vegas modding. Perhaps when official mod tools for the Outer Worlds come, we will get this officially, but fortunately there is this alternate solution. The Outer Worlds is using Unreal Engine 4 to actually function, and for Unreal Engine 4 games overall, there actually is a console that you can download. It's very simple. You'll download a program that will launch with the game, and you'll kind of just have it running in the background, enabling the console in-game, and from there, there's a wide variety of console commands you could use in the traditional fashion. You have things like the ability to show your HUD or turn your HUD off. You can manually set your level with a console command. You could just assign yourself perk points with a console command, so if you want to have more perks than you typically can, you could do that. You could actually adjust the level of weapons or armors, so you could very quickly get high tier stuff if you don't feel like doing some of the initial grind around that. One thing that can be pretty useful is you could actually use the drop all items or give player all items commands. This is very cheaty and can actually be pretty unstable, but it'll just give you everything. All the various items in this game you'll now have access to. There are commands to give you individual items also, although it's not as easy as like with Fallout. You have to find the exact item ID per your game, so it's a little bit more wonky, but there also is a free camera command with the toggle debug camera. This is super useful. You can fly around, get close-up shots of other things, but also this being one of the biggest parts parts actually see your own character. The way this will work is you basically have to stand still for long enough for the camera to start spinning around your character, then use the debug command and you can see your character in the third person. Those are just some of the commands I found the most useful or fun to mess around with, but there also is other stuff like being able to start or stop quests in case you're actually having some technical issues and want to resolve them through this. But another one that actually is going to be pretty handy for those of you playing this game or replaying this game is the SUPERNOVA patch. So what this mod will do is actually give you some options as far as actually changing how the SUPERNOVA mode will work in this. SUPERNOVA, if you're not familiar, is the hardcore mode with this game, and by default in that mode you can only save on your ship, you can only fast travel to your ship, nowhere else, and your companions can permanently die. What this will do is actually give you the option to enable or disable any of those. So it'll allow you to save anywhere, it'll allow you to fast travel anywhere, and it'll make it so your companions no longer permanently die. But again, if you just want one of those and not the others, you could do that. This is pretty nice for me because I'm not a huge fan of the whole saving thing. I like being able to quick save, or I like being able to save before a big fight and not lose progress. But again, if you were somebody who's playing that mode, these do give you some additional configuration options as to how exactly you want to experience it. But then, similar to that, what has quickly become the most successful and popular mod for the Outer Worlds thus far is the tweaked Outer Worlds. So basically what this is going to do is give you a variety of additional options and make a wide variety of tweaks in this game. Some of these are options you don't typically have access to, like completely disabling motion blur, depth of field, or chromatic aberration, which is making some of those distant trees or things you see just look worse and the colors kind of fuzzy. For certain things like foliage, it'll actually increase the render distance so you can see it from farther away. And outside of that, there's also some fixes or optimizations with this that also are pretty handy. Just in general, it's a good mod to add to your game. It'll make some general improvements, but also there are certain configurable features in case you want certain things disabled and you can't typically achieve that. But then what has quickly become the most popular category for mods in the Outer Worlds are visual mods. And that comes in the form of a wide variety of reshades that have come out for this game. Reshade is a pretty general third-party mod that will change the visuals of your game slightly. It's popular with Fallout, Skyrim, and many other games, and we have several presets now available for the Outer Worlds. Naturally, this is one of those things that is pretty subjective. The most popular one released thus far is the TERRAFORMED reshade. That's going to really change up the color and actually add a bit more depth of field with some of the visuals. The depth of field in particular is a pretty notable change. Now when you're actually looking at certain other NPCs or items, you could see that clear blurring factor between them and the background. This obviously isn't for everyone though, so fortunately it does come as a toggleable feature. If you want that off at all times, you can keep it off. And speaking broadly, I would say the reason this has quickly become one of the most popular is because it's one of the most extreme. Out of all the reshades I tested, which was most of them, this one felt like it brought the most visual change to the Outer Worlds and actually made it look more like a different game compared to a lot of the others that were a bit more minor, which depending on how you feel about the game by default is either a really good thing or a really bad thing. Or alternatively, you have something like the cleaner Outer Worlds. This one's going to more get rid of that aqua blue filter that the game typically has. This will have the effect of making the game look sharper in some instances, but also just a bit warmer overall. Some of those reds are a little bit louder, and again, you have less of that blue and aqua. In a similar fashion, we also do have neutral LUT. This one is pretty cool. It does kind of what I would imagine is just make the Outer Worlds look a bit more realistic. Even though there still are some of those vibrant and loud colors, just overall, it's a little bit more grounded. It makes the game look a bit more neutral, not as extreme or colorful in some instances, and to me, it made the color palette a little bit more similar to reality. But conversely, as a final example, you also do have Obsidian reshade, which I think actually tones up some of the colors. It makes things look a little bit more dramatic, a little bit more extreme. A lot of those colors look quite a bit crisper than they did previously. In this, I just want to show you some of the most popular options out there right now, but there's a wide variety if you want to change the visuals of this game. These four are probably some of the most downloaded, but there are probably another 5-10 options out there. But otherwise, yeah, at least for now, that is a look at what you could do with the Outer Worlds with some of the modding options currently available. Obviously right now it's mostly quality of life or basic fixes, just improving some aspects about the game, but hopefully in the future we do see the Outer Worlds get a fully fledged mod scene when mod tools are eventually added. And for me at least personally, I'm quite curious to see where the game goes next. Hopefully again in just 7 days from the time this is uploaded, we'll have a much better understanding or idea around this. It's not clear how big of a presentation or how big of a role Obsidian will have at this KapGun conference for Xbox, but it seems like it will be major. Xbox themselves seem pretty satisfied with how the game performed. New Vegas had a massive modding scene, so I imagine all parties realize that and will probably have something along the way, or at the very least, at least news on DLC if modding's still a way out. Although important to keep in mind, although they've said they want to bring modding to this game, we really don't know what it'll look like, how moddable they plan to make it. But again, based off all the other things I just mentioned, hopefully we see quite a bit. The Outer Worlds has been a massive success thus far, and I think mods could be one of those things to really take it to the next level over the next few months. I'll definitely keep you guys up to date with that if we hear any news or happenings. But with that being said, I thank you all for watching again. Hopefully you enjoyed this video, and I hope to see you all next time. Later.